Have you ever thought about moving in with your children in your later years? It sounds ideal, family together, support nearby, and no loneliness. But what if I told you that many seniors regret this decision? A recent survey found that over 65% of elderly parents who moved in with their adult children faced unexpected emotional and financial struggles. Could this happen to you? Are you making the right decision? Stay with me until the end because the last truth is the hardest to hear, but it could save you from a heartbreaking mistake. Before we continue, let me know in the comments, have you ever thought about moving in with your children? What worries you the most? Truth 1, you might feel like a burden. At first, the idea of moving in with your children seems comforting. You imagine a life filled with love, laughter, and shared moments. But what happens when reality doesn't match expectations? Over time, many elderly parents begin to feel like an inconvenience. Even if their children never express it outright, subtle shifts in behavior, short responses, sighs, or hesitation can make them feel like they're overstaying their welcome. This is not because their children don't love them, but because daily life is busy. Juggling jobs, raising kids, and handling responsibilities can make it difficult for adult children to provide the level of attention aging parents often need. The unspoken emotional strain builds up, and many seniors find themselves feeling like a burden without anyone ever saying it aloud. Studies show that seniors who perceive themselves as burdens are more likely to experience depression, anxiety, and social withdrawal. A study from the National Institute on Aging found that feeling unwanted can increase the risk of loneliness and even worsen physical health conditions, such as high blood pressure and heart disease. Imagine living in a house where everyone is busy with their own lives and no one has time to sit and talk. You hesitate before asking for a favor. You feel guilty when needing help. Over time, this sense of guilt and emotional distress can erode self-esteem, making you feel more isolated than ever, ironically, even when surrounded by family. Nancy, 72, lost her husband and decided to move in with her son's family. At first, everything seemed perfect. She enjoyed being around her grandchildren and helping out in small ways. But as weeks turned into months, she began to notice subtle signs. Her daughter-in-law would take a long pause before responding to her requests. Her son always seemed preoccupied, and the grandchildren started spending less time with her. Nancy told herself she was imagining things, but deep down, she started feeling like an extra responsibility rather than a welcomed presence. She didn't want to add to her son's stress, so she withdrew. She started eating dinner alone, spent more time in her room, and avoided asking for help. The emotional weight of feeling unwanted began affecting her physical health. Her appetite declined, her sleep suffered, and soon she started questioning whether she had made a mistake. If you're considering moving in with your children, have an open and honest discussion before making the transition. Address expectations, boundaries, and concerns from both sides. Create personal routines that allow you to maintain independence. Set clear communication habits to avoid misunderstandings. Find ways to contribute, such as babysitting, cooking, or handling small household tasks. Seek outside social connections through senior clubs, hobbies, or volunteering, so you don't rely solely on family for social interaction. If you've ever felt like a burden to your family, type "I understand" in the comments. Let's support each other. Truth 2, loss of independence. Your home, your rules, right? Not anymore. When you move in with your children, you might assume it will feel like an extension of the life you've built for yourself, but the reality is different. Living under someone else's roof often means adjusting to their schedules, eating habits, and routines. Your personal preferences, whether it's waking up early for a quiet morning, watching your favorite TV show at night, or cooking meals the way you like, might not fit in with your children's household. At first, you may not mind the changes, thinking, "I'll adjust, it's not a big deal." But as time goes on, small compromises add up and you start feeling like you've lost control over your own life. Suddenly, you feel like a guest instead of a head of the household. Losing independence doesn't just change routines, it affects mental and emotional well-being. Studies show that seniors who feel a lack of control over their daily lives are at a higher risk of depression and cognitive decline. Even small frustrations, such as eating foods you don't enjoy or following a routine that doesn't suit you, can lead to feelings of helplessness. When seniors lose their sense of control, they often experience frustration, resentment, and even a loss of self-identity. The subtle feeling of "I no longer make my own choices" builds up over time and can create tension between you and your children, even if neither side directly acknowledges it. Joe, 75, loved waking up at 6 a.m., enjoying his coffee in silence and reading the newspaper. But after moving in with his daughter's family, his mornings became chaotic. His grandchildren ran around getting ready for school, loud music played in the background, and there was no space for him to enjoy his quiet time. At first, he tried to adjust, but over time he found himself skipping breakfast, avoiding the living room, and staying in his room just to find peace. He felt like an outsider in the home where he was supposed to feel comfortable. He never complained, but the loss of his simple morning routine made him feel powerless. If you're moving in with your children, it's essential to maintain a sense of personal independence. Have your own space within the home. Even a small area that is yours will help you feel comfortable. Keep personal routines intact. Stick to your wake-up times, hobbies, and daily rituals whenever possible. Communicate your needs early on. Don't wait until frustration builds. Set clear boundaries from the beginning. What part of your daily routine would you refuse to give up? Drop a comment below. Truth 3: different lifestyles and values. When you move in with your children, you expect to be part of their household, but what happens when your way of living doesn't align with theirs? Generational differences can lead to unexpected friction, whether it's about finances, parenting styles, or even something as simple as meal choices. For decades, you've lived by certain principles. You believe in structured meals, limited screen time, and clear family values. But your children, influenced by a modern, fast-paced world, may have different views on discipline, finances, and daily routines. Over time, these differences can create subtle but painful conflicts. At first, they may seem minor. Perhaps your children let their kids stay up late, eat fast food, or spend hours on their devices. But as small differences pile up, you might start feeling alienated in your own home. When you feel like an outsider in your own family, it can lead to frustration, resentment, and emotional exhaustion. Studies suggest that seniors who experience conflict with their adult children are at a higher risk of depression and loneliness. Disagreements about values can also put a strain on your relationship with your children and grandchildren. If discussions frequently turn into arguments, you might start withdrawing from family interactions to avoid tension. This isolation can make you feel like you don't belong in your own home. Frank, 78, always believed in having dinner as a family with no distractions. It was something he had practiced his whole life, but after moving in with his daughter, he was shocked to see his grandchildren glued to their smartphones during meals. One evening, he politely asked them to put their phones away and focus on family time. His daughter gave him an awkward smile and said, "Dad, this is how kids are these days. We let them do their thing." Frank felt uncomfortable but didn't push the issue. The next night, he tried again. This time, he firmly requested the kids turn off their devices. His daughter sighed and responded, "Dad, I get it, but you need to let go of these old-school rules." The dinner table fell silent, and Frank suddenly felt like an outsider rather than a respected elder. From that night on, he started skipping family meals, feeling like his presence was more of a disruption than a contribution. Respect their choices even if you disagree. Accept that times have changed, and your children have their own way of raising their families. Find compromises instead of imposing your views. Instead of demanding they follow your rules, suggest a weekly family dinner with no phones instead of enforcing it every night. Focus on building a positive environment. Avoid unnecessary arguments. Kindness and respect go both ways. Have you ever disagreed with your children about their parenting choices? Share your thoughts. Truth 4: lack of privacy. One of the biggest adjustments when moving in with your children is losing the personal space you once had. Your home was your sanctuary, a place where you controlled your environment, had time to yourself, and made decisions without considering anyone else. But now, your space is shared, and privacy becomes a luxury. It may seem manageable at first. You tell yourself, "I don't need much space," or "it's just nice being around family." But as time passes, you start noticing the little things, never having a quiet moment, needing to coordinate when to use shared areas, or feeling like you have to ask permission to do things you once did freely. Feeling like you're constantly on display can lead to mental and emotional exhaustion. Everyone needs alone time to recharge, reflect, and simply exist without external expectations. A study from the National Institute on Aging found that seniors who lack personal space or alone time are more likely to experience stress, irritability, and even resentment toward their family members. Over time, this can create a disconnect between you and your children, making you feel more like a guest in their home rather than a family member. Even small things like having no control over what's on the TV, constantly hearing background noise, or always being around others can feel suffocating. Many seniors find themselves retreating to their rooms, not because they want to, but because it's the only place where they can truly be alone. Carol, 69, had always enjoyed her quiet evenings watching her favorite TV shows. It was a routine she had followed for years, finishing dinner, making tea, and unwinding with a good show. But after moving in with her son's family, that routine disappeared. The living room was always occupied, her grandchildren played video games, her son watched sports, and her daughter-in-law worked on her laptop. Carol no longer had a space that felt like her own. At first, she tried adapting by watching shows in her bedroom, but it didn't feel the same. She didn't want to interrupt or complain, so she quietly withdrew from family time altogether. The lack of privacy made her feel like she didn't belong in the very home she lived in. Establish personal space within the home, even if it's just a small corner for reading, hobbies, or quiet time. Have designated time to yourself daily, whether it's taking a walk, sitting in a quiet area, or simply being alone without interruptions. Discuss expectations about shared spaces before moving in. Setting clear boundaries ensures everyone feels comfortable. Do you value your personal space? Type yes if privacy matters to you. Truth 5. Financial stress on your children, expanded to 500 words. Many seniors move in with their children hoping for a secure and supportive environment, but what often goes unspoken is the financial burden this arrangement can create. Even if your children never mention it, having another person in the house means higher grocery bills, increased utility costs, and potential medical expenses. At first, your children may say, "Don't worry about it, Mom, Dad, we've got it covered." But over time, the strain can start to show: fewer family outings, budget cuts on household expenses, or stress when unexpected costs arise. For seniors living on a fixed income or pension, it's easy to assume that moving in with family will reduce your own financial burden. However, if it shifts that burden onto your children, it can create an unspoken tension that grows over time. Seniors who feel like a financial strain on their children often experience guilt, anxiety, and even depression. They may start withdrawing, avoiding small expenses, or feeling hesitant to ask for anything. This guilt can lead to strained relationships and a loss of emotional closeness with family members. On the flip side, your children may never express their struggles directly, fearing that it will make you feel unwanted. Instead, resentment can build up over time, leading to stress, misunderstandings, and even avoidance of tough financial discussions. In some cases, financial stress can even impact the care you receive. When families feel stretched thin, they may cut corners on healthcare, nutrition, or comfort expenses that could have been addressed with better planning. To prevent financial strain from becoming a silent issue in your household, discuss money matters openly before moving in. It's important to be proactive rather than reactive about financial planning. Contribute financially if possible. If you have a pension, savings, or any source of income, offer to share in household expenses rather than waiting for your children to ask. Even small contributions can make a big difference. Help in non-monetary ways. If finances are tight, contribute by cooking meals, helping with childcare, or handling small errands to reduce stress on your children. Being a support system, rather than just a dependent, can help balance the dynamic. Discuss expectations up front, avoid assumptions, sit down and have an open discussion about how finances will be managed. Will you contribute to groceries? Will your medical expenses be covered separately? Talking about these things in advance prevents misunderstandings and future tension. If you think financial discussions are important, type "money talks" in the comments. Truth 6. It can strain your relationship, expanded to 500 words. What starts as a loving and well-intentioned arrangement can, over time, turn into tension, misunderstandings, and even resentment. Moving in with your children might feel like the best option. You're close to family, receive support, and avoid the loneliness of living alone. However, living together as adults is very different from raising a family under one roof. You and your children have developed your own routines, habits, and expectations. Clashing perspectives on house rules, financial contributions, daily schedules, and even small lifestyle preferences can lead to frustration on both sides. For parents, it can feel like losing authority in a home where they used to be the decision makers. For children, it may feel like a shift from independent adulthood back into a parental oversight structure. The result: unspoken tension that grows over time, leading to arguments or emotional distance. No one wants to damage their relationship with their children, yet unresolved tensions can weaken family bonds. A study from the National Institute on Aging found that family conflict is a major contributor to depression and emotional distress among seniors living with their children. This tension may manifest in small, seemingly harmless ways at first, short tempers, avoidance, or passive-aggressive remarks. But if left unaddressed, it can turn into full-blown resentment that makes living together unbearable. Some elderly parents feel that their presence in the home is no longer appreciated, while their children might feel burdened but guilty for feeling that way. This dynamic can erode trust, respect, and closeness, leaving both sides feeling trapped. Mary, 74, moved in with her daughter's family after her husband passed away. Initially, everything seemed perfect. She enjoyed spending time with her grandchildren and helping around the house. However, small things started creating tension. Mary liked the house to be quiet in the mornings, but her daughter's family played loud music at breakfast. She preferred home-cooked meals, but her daughter often ordered takeout. Instead of talking about her feelings, Mary began silently resenting the situation. She withdrew, spending most of her time in her room. Her daughter, sensing the change, also started pulling away. Soon, their once close relationship became distant and tense. Set clear expectations before moving in. Have open discussions about house rules, finances, and boundaries to prevent misunderstandings. Maintain outside friendships and activities. This helps avoid emotional dependency on your children and gives you a sense of independence. Consider alternative options. If tensions persist, explore nearby senior communities, assisted living, or independent housing options. Have you experienced family tension after moving in together? Share your story below. Moving in with your children is a huge decision, and it's not always as simple as it seems. Take time to evaluate these 6 hard truths first. If this video helped you, hit like and subscribe for more life-changing content. And if you've experienced this firsthand, share your story in the comments. Your insight could help someone else make the right choice.